Hi, I'm Mark Sumner, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner. Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast, where we will share learnings, best practices and failures with some of the biggest names in the IT industry.
This week on the Channel Chat podcast, I was joined by Helen Workman, the head of Marketing XMA, and discussed some really good topics. And a couple of my favourites were capitalising on opportunities and how she's gone about achieving 3 promotions in 3 years. The theory of marketing, opposed to the kind of day-to-day realities of it, and finally a very controversial opinion on women in channels. So take a listen and let me know your thoughts. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Channel Chat podcast. It's your host Mark Reddy, so it's my first time hosting. So you've got me for anywhere between kind of half an hour to an hour now. Today I'm joined by the head of Marketing XMA, Helen Workman. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. So I'd like to kind of kick off the podcast by kind of going into your background, how you got into the mad space is the channel. So I understand you're a graduate, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I studied marketing at the University of Hertfordshire. Last minute choice in terms of what course I was actually going to do. But it actually all came about. I decided that I wanted to work in marketing from the most random experience ever. I watched one episode of The Apprentice and just thought, I must be able to do a better job than all of those guys.
And you sold?
I was sold. There was one marketing task where I was almost shouting at the TV, telling them what to do. And then that's when I had this little light bulb go off in my head, and I was like, do you know what, maybe I should try and do something with this. And then
here we are.
I
still
haven't applied for The Apprentice either.
So your first role in marketing, I understand it was a kind of part-time role initially while you were still studying, is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to, university, it's all very theoretical, isn't it? So I wanted to sort of put that theory into practice, and I wanted to build some experience sort of whilst I was studying. I thought that the two could complement each other quite well. So I got a part-time job as a sales and marketing consultant at a local fitness centre.
Okay.
Your standard stuff, I managed their social media platform, developed collateral, all of the sort of, really basic level stuff. And then I, later on, I actually went on to do it full-time as well. So
what was that experience like, kind of jumping in? I'm assuming it was all B2C, wasn't it, at that stage?
All B2C, yeah. There was different seasonalities. I'm sure that everyone, knows that in January, marketing around fitness just goes absolutely nuts. Yeah. So it was good. It didn't challenge me, and because you are so early starting out as well, and it was also one of those centres where they didn't totally understand what marketing was.
Right, okay.
They said to me, manage our social media platform, create some leaflets for us, and then we'll wait for everyone to come flooding through.
If they don't come, they come shouting at you, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fair enough. How did you, or could you utilise your degree? Have you seen that being kind of beneficial through your career, or?
Yes, absolutely. Copywriting is probably one of the most valuable things that I've got out of it. I mean, the theories that you learn, so, the 7 Ps, the marketing mix, yes, that's kind of all well and good, but none of us, I don't think so anyway, none of us marketers actually properly sit in a room and go, so, let's go through the 7 Ps. So it's good from sort of a basic understanding level. You take on an accountancy module as well, so when we're managing our P&L and budgeting, it's always very useful. Could I have moved into marketing without a marketing degree? Yes, absolutely, but it certainly would have taken me longer to get to grips with marketing as an actual career.
Yeah, because I think that'd be a bit of a shame if you would purely go into uni as a bit of an in to get into marketing. Yeah. As long as you're actually getting value from it, and especially in your kind of role now, the financial side of it's obviously become more and more important and pressing, and you wouldn't necessarily get exposure to that unless you were leading a team. Yeah,
100%. And actually, at one point in my marketing career so far, I have managed budgets and things like that, and it is moments like that where I was like, I wish I'd paid more attention in my accountancy module.
Wish I didn't go out that night and I listened to the classroom the following day.
I know, I almost wish I could just call up my old lecturer and just ask her about how to balance the P&L sheet.
Okay, so following on from your role there, what did you do next?
I graduated uni, and then I went on to work for kind of like a graphic design vinyl office company, and it was a standalone marketing role. And I think that anyone that's accepted a standalone marketing role will probably have gone through the same thought process that I did. I was focused on all of the pros, and I sort of thought, this is great, standalone role, you can put your own stamp on things, any of the successes that happen, it's all down to me. You kind of think I can become self-taught, and, one day I might be able to, have done such a fabulous job that then I'll have someone reporting into me. Very much looking at standalone marketing role in rose-tinted glasses. The unfortunate thing was moving into that organisation where there wasn't an established marketing department. Did they really understand exactly what marketing was and, how the marketing strategy should fit into the overall business? No. And the cons slowly started to become clear where I didn't have a team to learn from. And coming fresh out of uni, I needed someone to learn from. I needed to, voice my thoughts in terms of, marketing ideas and campaigns. And I wanted someone with a bit more experience to be able to say to me, have you actually considered this? It's so important in marketing to be able to bounce ideas off each other. Yeah. I didn't have that. And I think that starting off in your career, the most important thing is to get involved in an already very well established team and an organisation that has marketing as a key part of their strategy as well.
Yeah, of course. And what advice would you be able to give someone that's perhaps in that kind of position? And I think the channel is maybe a bit further ahead than a lot of industries, but to the same degree, it's still quite far behind. How can you show kind of senior management the value of marketing? Do you need to present kind of an ROI, or what advice would you give to someone in maybe a low marketing role?
The first thing that you have to do is to ask questions. So don't go bouncing in there with all of these different marketing ideas without really understanding exactly where the business has been. Sure. So what marketing has been done before. If no marketing at all, then, what did last quarter look like for them? And then really, before you even have a marketing conversation, understand where they want their business to go. Where have they identified their areas of growth? Where do they think the opportunity lies? Where do they want the business to be in 12 months' time? And then that is where you go away and you start to develop that marketing strategy. Right. You ask them, how are you currently engaging with your customers? Do you engage with your customers at all? What do you think that the brand is? Do we have an established brand? So the first most important thing is to just ask questions and learn about the organisation.
And being more proactive rather than just reactive, being kind of waiting told what to do. You've got to go out and find the information yourself. And
absolutely, and that's why, after you've had those conversations about what is the business's vision, what are your objectives, you then can go away and say, okay, well, I understand that this is where it's going, so that then you know that when you put forward your marketing strategy, everything's linked to where the managing director, sales director, whoever, to where they want it to go. And then immediately they're already more invested in the marketing vision as well.
That makes complete sense. I think there's a lot of value for people there. And then we come on to your time at XMA.
Yeah.
Obviously where you are now. So how did that opportunity kind of become available? Because it's obviously quite difficult to get into the tech space in kind of general.
It is. And do you know what? If someone had said to me 10 years ago, you're going to work in IT, I never would have believed them either. So just as much a surprise to me as it is to probably my friends and family. Yeah. But when I was doing the standalone role, the marketing director at the time at XMA reached out to me and said, hey, I've got an entry-level role available to you. It's sort of an executive coordinator role. Want you to come in and just sort of be support for the rest of the team. And I sort of thought to myself, great, like if I'm supporting the rest of the team, then it means that I'm learning all about what they're doing. There was a level of ownership, and we just launched this B2C e-commerce platform as well. So we'd never done anything into B2C before either. So she also brought me in to sort of, try and manage that and try and build out the brand a bit more.
Okay. You touched on it a little bit there. What was your perception of tech and IT before joining the industry? I stereotyped. I'm ashamed to say. I sort of thought, it's just going to be filled with men that are just going to, come and speak to me about software-defined networking and infrastructure. And I'm trying not to say geeks, but yes, the geeks. And isn't that an awful perception to have? Because you do end up just thinking about, those kids that in school that were like super, super clever, and not the most social creatures. You just assume that people in IT are like that, and
I'm ashamed at how wrong I was.
Yeah, it's such a variation in personalities across the board in the channel, and
Yeah.
I think it's a very common view on what the channel looked like before you obviously enter it. So I think I was the same, to be fair.
I thought it was also, I was like, it's very male dominated
Yeah.
as well. So, you know, am I basically going to be the only girl in the office?
Yeah.
And even the marketing director at the time, who was a woman, I was like, oh, you work in IT? That's a real weird surprise.
Okay.
Staying, it has a stigma, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And touching on that now, kind of women in channels it's just a really hot subject across the board, and I think you especially see it into the kind of corporates a few years ago, and it's dropping down now to the more smaller businesses. What's your view on kind of bringing women to channel and that real emphasis around kind of women in general in this space? Is that something we need to drive on more, or what's your kind of view?
I'm going to be really controversial.
Okay.
I think it's the most patronising thing in the world.
Right.
It feels a little bit like, you know, you're a woman and you've come to work and you're actually doing all right in your career. You deserve an award. Well done. Well done, you.
Yeah.
So I do find it a little bit patronising. Absolutely, we should recognise women, but then, you know, why does it need to be an isolated thing? You know, it's almost like hosting separate things for women in IT and things like that. It almost isolates us a little bit further. And I think that, you know, yes, we want to start driving more women to working in IT, but why are we already trying to, you know, reach out to women who are already established in these roles? Why don't we start earlier on? Why don't we start to work closely with schools to encourage girls to pursue STEM subjects? When girls are considering going on to university, why don't we start there and try and, you know, talk to them about taking a degree or a course at university that can enable them to then go on to work in IT and technology? We need to start developing that talent pool at an earlier age, is my opinion.
So educating people at a younger age to understand what IT and the technical and the channel is, opposed to really highlighting them when they are here, because then we're all people and we're all doing kind of the best job we can, and we shouldn't highlight them all separately. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And you know, I think that we could all do a better job in, you know, reaching out to the younger generation to try and prepare them for a career in IT. And yes, we should. I think we need to market women with successes in IT a little bit better, but let's not market it to each other in the channel. Why aren't we taking that message, and why aren't we taking it to, like I say, schools and universities to say, you know, this isn't a man's world.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a brilliant industry to work in. There's so much opportunity, and like I said, we are kind of cutting off half the world, aren't we? It's just insane.
You'll never be bored in IT or technology, especially from a marketing perspective, because it changes all the time.
So innovative.
So you're constantly learning, and and like you say, there is so much opportunity in terms of career development in IT.
Okay. So touching back into your time, obviously joining XMA. You've jumped from kind of a B2C environment within the kind of fitness world to touching on what I'd imagine is B2B in the last opportunity, but this is going to be your kind of first fully fledged B2B role. What was that transition like, and how did you find that?
I think any marketers can relate when it comes to a bit of envy when it comes to B2B marketing versus B2C. B2C, you're marketing to someone who is outside of work, you know, you're marketing to, you know, more of their personal lifestyle, and you're identifying, you know, their want or their need, whereas marketing to a B2B organisation and someone in a very specific job role, it's a completely different message. They're going to be in a completely different mind frame. I think that there seems to kind of be this feeling that with B2C you can be more creative and you can be more brave, and B2B marketers probably feel a little bit more restricted in terms of, we want our business to be taken very seriously, therefore we always have to have a very sincere message, and, you know, we have to, you know, reach out to people with this very, you know, vanilla branding, you know, let's be very corporate and let's be very safe. I think B2B marketers are sometimes more afraid to take risk and be creative and, you know, be brave in their messaging. And I think that's something that we need to overcome. And it's certainly a challenge that I found. I've immediately felt a little bit restricted in B2B marketing, but once you've got the B2B marketing fundamentals nailed, then B2C is an absolute walk in the park.
Okay, cool. We'll touch on that, because I'm quite interested to hear your views on the kind of messaging within B2B at the moment, and perhaps being a little bit too faceless and corporate, and kind of making that transition across. So back to kind of XMA. So you joined as kind of marketing executive.
Yeah.
You've since had 2 promotions, which is a huge credit to obviously what you've done within the business. How did that happen? Was that kind of a clear development plan that XMA set out for you, or is it something you've got out and chased yourself, or how did that kind of look?
At the beginning, I went out and I chased it myself. I always knew very, very early on that I wanted to excel in my career. I was never huge on, educational development. I come from a family of very, academic people, but that was never really an interest for me. I wanted to put all of my time and energy into developing a career, and that's an attitude I had from the very beginning. So when I took my initial role, a marketing executive role, I just wanted to know absolutely everything. My job description obviously said that I'm responsible for X, Y, Z, which of course I made sure that I mastered, but at the same time I was like, I want to know everything. I want to know what every single person in the marketing department does. I want to know how everything works, and I really took the time to just know absolutely everything that I could and understand every single person's role, what challenges they faced, how are they working, because, yes, everyone in the team had more experience than me at that point. So I wanted to sort of take their experience and their expertise and just soak it up like a sponge.
Yeah, and put your own kind of, put a bit of Helen onto it, I think, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And, yes, I worked longer hours, and I also made sure that in the background, I did a huge amount of reading on B2B, because, the B2B marketing was only a very small part of my university degree. So in the background outside of work as well, I was looking at all these different practices, thinking about how I could apply those to work as well.
Okay, cool. You've touched on it there, the kind of development piece. I think businesses are crying out for people like yourself that are kind of ambitious and driven and want to always take themselves that kind of next step. Do you think that's kind of a nature or a nurture thing? Is that something you've been brought up to do, or do you think it's just who you are as a person?
I do think it's who I am as a person, but then it's equally so important to be in the right environment. You can be super, super motivated, but if you're in an environment where the opportunity isn't there and you don't see it, you don't actually see a progression path, then yes, it can kill your motivation. So I think that to make sure that ambition stays with you, it's so important to make sure you are in the right environment. And if you don't see a career path at the organisation that you're working for, then go and seek it elsewhere, because that's what I saw at XMA. I saw all these different levels in terms of like a career ladder that I could climb, and that's what motivated me, because every day I was looking at someone in a particular role and I was like, I want to be able to do that one day. Yeah,
100%. I think I'm in a similar kind of boat to you with my time here, and I think it's always about kind of taking the opportunity to learn the next role and not just kind of sit back and be happy with where you are. It's always about pushing on and trying to understand more and always learn, isn't it?
Absolutely. I always used to Google like job descriptions of where I wanted to be next. So, marketing exec, I'd Google a marketing manager job description. Marketing manager, I'd Google head of marketing job description. And I would look at what all the requirements are, and then I'd be like, right, okay, I know exactly what these kind of roles require in terms of experience and skill set. I'm going to make sure that I tick those boxes, and then I would make sure that I worked for that. Yeah,
okay. And during your time at XMA, you've obviously gone from, I'm going to describe it as a contributor role, because that's effectively what it was, yes. And you've moved into kind of management now. How did you find that transition just in general, and also touching on, you're obviously working with people in a contributor capacity, so working alongside them to then managing them, which I think could be incredibly difficult and challenging. How did you find that kind of move?
I was very, very fortunate to have some very supportive colleagues in the team at the time. Working so closely with them, they saw the amount of effort that I was putting into my role. I didn't make it a secret to them that I knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted the next step to be, and they knew that I wanted to be in a management role. And the best colleagues are the ones that support you and recognise you for the amount that you contribute to the team. And I was very, very lucky in that respect. And of course, when I was given the management role, I did kind of sit down with a couple of them and say, is this going to be weird? Yeah. But actually, they were absolutely fine with it, and they said, you more than deserve it. There was someone that decided to leave, but but that is absolutely fine. I think that if the roles were reversed, I probably would have felt the same. And it's I think that if I went into that role and I micromanaged, for example, then yes, that caused tension. But because I had worked alongside these people very closely for so long, I had that trust there. I knew what their expertise were. I knew what their skills were. So I made a very, very conscious effort to make sure that, I was, if anything, supporting them, and, I can help them to now make their own progression. I'm not necessarily there to manage. I'm just there to lead. From this perspective
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I've been in a similar kind of transition here. And I think it's all about how you approach those individuals and don't tarnish everyone the same brush when managing them, because it takes me back to kind of a couple of years ago. I was a food and beverage manager of a large hotel group, and I had 2 direct reports as assistant managers, and I had one who was kind of a similar age to me, really ambitious, wanted to do well, but needed that kind of training. But at the same time, I had someone in the kind of early 50s that worked at Hilton for 20 years, and there's only so much value I can give each of those, and I've got to treat them very, very differently and not step on people's toes, but they're still your responsibility. So it's kind of working alongside them, having that transparent conversation and building that trust, isn't it?
100%. And I learned very, very early on, because at first I kind of thought, what kind of manager am I going to be? And that's a question that I got asked, like, what kind of manager are you?
Such a weird question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a weird question, because I'm not any kind of manager. Actually, every single person is an individual, and you just manage them accordingly based on that. There is no one way approach. I could never say this is the kind of manager I am, because every single person is different.
Yeah, of course. On that management piece, you've obviously had this great progression through to the business, and that isn't always available to the kind of people coming in now. How do you manage their development expectations of how they're going to kind of push on in their careers? And I know you mentioned there, if the opportunity's not there, you might have to move on, but you obviously really want to help those people develop and push on to their careers as well.
100%. I try and make them see the bigger picture. I never ever want to lose really skilled people in my team, and I'll always do absolutely anything that I can do to incentivize them to stay in their role with XMA. However, I completely appreciate that in IT and in technology, look at all these massive brands that we work with. I wouldn't ever want anyone to be completely pigeonholed, and certainly the marketing management roles that we have at XMA are absolutely incredible opportunities to just get yourself known, work on your personal brand, and put yourself in front of those globally recognized brands, Apple, Google, Microsoft. There's lots of people from XMA that have done so well in their roles with those particular vendors that they've then gone on to work for them. And that's how I motivate them to say, just think about, with a few years of working with these brands, think about all the other opportunities that it can open for you. Because I think your role as a manager isn't about pigeonholing someone and trying to get them to stay with you. I think you have to recognise that, if their skill set is wide enough, and if they're just as ambitious as you are, then you have to recognise the fact that, one day they are going to leave, but you want to make sure that their time with you and their time at XMA is a positive enough experience that they feel motivated to do so well at their job and excel every single day.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Okay, and on that leadership piece as well, I remember when I was promoted to a team leader here, and I had 3 people kind of reported into me, and they said that in their kind of one-to-one for that year that they wanted to make a similar transition as me. And by the end of that year, they changed their minds, and I think it's because they'd seen what the role looks like and the kind of responsibilities you take. Do you think kind of leadership management is something you naturally have, or can it be taught?
Elements of it come naturally, like I say, in terms of your management style, but then I think that there are areas where you do need to be a little bit self-taught, and you should probably look up on different ways and draw on experience from other people that have years worth of management experience. You're always going to come up with challenging situations, like, for example, if you ever come across, an employee that you need to dismiss, or you need to, present as disciplinary. If you don't have management experience, that is a really nerve-wracking thing to do. 100%. So certainly what I do in any scenarios that are really new to me is go to people that I completely respect, to have that management experience, and try and learn from them as well. I'm not don't ever be, arrogant enough to think that you know absolutely everything there is to know about leadership and management when you first step into it, because there's a hell of a lot of the unknown.
Certainly is. That. Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is the empathy piece, and you've got to understand how they take information, how they kind of react to it. And like you said, if you take them into a separate environment, that's often helpful. And I've been reading a book on Sir Alex Ferguson, most famous football manager, most successful manager in the world, and he used to rile up players in certain ways because he knew they would, if you shouted at them, you'd get a good performance out of them. But there's other one where you put the hand over the shoulder and have a bit of a conversation with them, and it's just people skills, isn't it? And about to understand people and really read them. It
really is, and I always sort of say to them, because I have worked my way up, and I did sort of start at the bottom of the marketing pecking order in XMA and then worked my way up, I can have the empathy piece, and I can say to them, I know how you're feeling, I've been through it myself, I know exactly how you feel. So the empathy, because I have progressed in this environment, I'm not someone that's come in externally, that's never done their role before, and I'm trying to understand. I know exactly what they've been through, and I think that really, really helps when we have these kind of conversations where, they need some extra support.
Yeah, of course. And you obviously moved into the business as a marketing executive. I'm sure a lot of people still remember you as that person that came in as a marketing executive, and you're at where you are now. Is there a bit of a stigma, both maybe internally or people externally, of who Helen is, and maybe undervalue you or underappreciate what you're kind of doing? Is that ever a concern?
I'd hope never underappreciate. I think people might underestimate. I'll never ever forget when I was in a sort of a work function, and someone not at XMA, someone said to me, what are your career ambitions? And I said to them, I want to make head of marketing before I'm 30. No, actually, scrap that. I will make head of marketing before I'm 30. And they actually went, lower the bar a little bit, let's not be too ambitious. And do you know what? That actually just gave me this little bit of a fire in my belly where I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And anyone else that worked really closely with me at XMA, and anyone that works with me on a day-to-day basis, know how hard I worked to get to the position that I am in now. It absolutely hasn't been fluked. I put every single effort in, and I had a very set career plan. And just because your timelines might not fit with other people's, some people might think, it took me 10 years to get to that position, therefore it took you 4.
Yeah.
But everyone is completely different. I think that I am a very, very fast learner, and with that motivation and that ambition to drive me, I just soak in information, and that's how I think I was able to progress so quickly. But within XMA, I don't think that there is a stigma at all. I think that I fought very hard to get marketing to have a voice at the table as well, and marketing's already grown so much over the past year or so. So proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah. Did you drop that person a little text to say you'd done it, or?
Oh, they just saw my LinkedIn job updates. So
I hope they remember that.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope they're listening now.
Yeah. So touching on to XMA more, I'm really keen to kind of break that down a bit further. So one of the biggest things that I have obviously seen over the last couple of years is a lot of people consider XMA as this kind of public sector reseller, and that's maybe the reputation you've had, and rightly so, because XMA have done it so well for so many years. You obviously expanded out into that corporate arm over the last few years and had real success with it. What's the difference between marketing a public sector led reseller to opening that corporate side? Is there a lot of differences? Or?
Huge amount of differences. We like you say, we are very established in the public sector space. So do we need to do a huge amount of brand awareness marketing? Do we need to, do these awareness campaigns in terms of the XMA profile? Probably not necessarily. The way that public sector organisations buy is very, very different to how the corporate market would. It's very framework driven. So, for example, if we were to run a public sector campaign, would we decide to do paid social or, Google AdWords or LinkedIn? No, because it's not going to influence the buying. And you have to make sure, this is the thing with marketing, there is no kind of blank sheet for everyone. There is never a one size fits all approach. We have to be very, very tailored in how we engage with those audiences. And the way that we structure our marketing plans is that we either say, well, are we acquiring or are we going to grow? And then we then kind of say, for example, if we want to do a refresh or campaign out to lapsed customers in the public sector, we have such a vast database of customers that actually we say, well, in the public sector space, we can build out this kind of persona campaign of who specifically we want to target, and we could even go one step further and do very account-based marketing with public sector. So we engage through very different channels as opposed to what we would in corporate. In corporate, there probably is more freedom for businesses to go out to IT suppliers, and because there is nothing's terribly framework driven, etc. It is kind of they go out and just look for the best IT supplier for them. So that's when we realised we can do like all of this marketing around corporate, but because we're not particularly established in that corporate space, our marketing campaigns also need to be a little bit different in terms of what message are we taking to market. The things that we hear all the time from sales, because obviously we ask them what challenges they face, so that can help shape our campaigns. The sales guys say, well, we reach out to our customers or these particular organisations, and either they already have an internal IT resource, or they already have a set IT supplier, or they haven't necessarily heard of XMA. So why would they buy from us, and why would they trust us to look after their entire IT estate? Yeah. So as marketeers, we then have to say, okay, well, if we know that those are the challenges that sales guys are facing, then what is the best message to take to market? How can we tap into those organisations' needs? Very, very different between public sector and corporate, the way that we approach things.
Yeah, you just complicated it even further for me there. Like, you've got so much on your plate there to consider, and it's going to make your face wince a little bit on ourselves, I think. But I think the reputation that marketing had a good few years ago, and the phrase you often hear is the colouring department, which is them dreaded words. But
can you make this look pretty? Can you just add some splash of colour?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I
no
think
questions asked.
Yeah, that's still the opinion of some people in the channel of what marketing is. But as you kind of went into there's a sweet science to marketing, whether it's more the analytical side of things or understanding the view of your customer and what they want to see. And do you think marketing goes kind of underappreciated in that sense?
Marketing, I feel we need to fight to get our voice heard and have that voice at the table. And we are fortunate enough at XMA where marketing have been quite bullish, and we've always started to question why. So if a sales guy comes to us and says, can you please just make this PDF that I want to send to my customer nice and pretty, rather than just sort of nodding our heads and things like that, which we're probably expected to do. Actually, we start to question why, and we're like, well, what value are you actually trying to get out of this? What engagement are you trying to have with this customer? Is this new business? Is this? And because we then start to question why, we can then put our feedback and our own expertise forward, because we're an extension of the sales department, and as you say, there is a science behind marketing that I don't think a huge amount of people appreciate. I like to use this this kind of analogy, which my boss at XMA actually used with me a couple of times, is that a really good hockey player will always follow the puck. But the best hockey player will always know where the puck is going and make sure that they are there before it reaches that point. That's exactly what we have to do in marketing. We have to always make sure that we know where the market is going. We have to know the best ways to engage with our customers. And then, even after all of that, we then have to identify whether what we have done has worked. There's all these analytical approaches that we have to take. We have to have a really good understanding in terms of whether a campaign has actually worked. We have to be very methodical in our approaches and how we engage with these customers. We have to think like the customer and say, well, what channels would they use? What kind of language would they want to hear? There is so much more to marketing than making things look pretty. It upsets me dreadfully.
Yeah, it sounds like you're quite fortunate that sales are kind of understand the value of the marketing piece. Do you integrate well as a marketing sales team? Because obviously you come under the same banner of maybe Ian managing sales and marketing, but I think a lot of salespeople are naturally quite dismissive of marketing.
Sales are very outcome focused. So rather than thinking about the way to get there, they just look at the end result. And I'm the same. I start with the end in mind in absolutely everything that I do. And but there has to be kind of an element of partnership between sales and marketing. Like I say, marketing are an extension of sales. We touch base with customers just like sales do. And don't get me wrong, there used to be quite a disconnect between marketing and sales at XMA. Maybe, marketing was considered an island. And I'm sure there's some marketers would be able to relate to this when sales go, "Ooh, what actually is it that marketing do?" And we do a huge amount, but in order to change that behaviour, and that's something that I really, really wanted to do when I stepped into this role, in order to change that behaviour, it's very, very natural and habitual for when we're creating marketing campaigns. We don't create marketing campaigns in isolation. We have that level of engagement with sales where we say, what are you going and speaking to your customers about? Sales are the ones that know their customers best. They know the conversations that they're having. And also any marketing campaigns that we deliver, if a customer engages with it, then there's an expectation of sales to then follow up on that. Yeah. And for, sales to embrace our marketing campaign and stuff like that. So we have to make sure that sales are always on board. So when it comes to building out our marketing plans, like I say, we have that planning session with sales where we say, what are you speaking to your customers about? What's important to them? And then we can also go to them and say, this is what we've discovered is happening in the market at the moment. This is the message that we want to take, and do you agree with that? What do you think the best way is to engage with customers? There absolutely has to be a partnership, because even during that planning stage and beyond that, when the execution side of the marketing campaign is happening, we have to constantly measure whether what we're doing is working. So, we might sort of say a month down the line, do you know what, this approach of engaging with this particular market isn't working. Let's find out why. The best people to tell you are sales, because sales are the ones that are, in the trenches, essentially. Marketing can't expect to set a strategy and then sit back and, relax, let sales do all the work. No, it's very, very much working together and getting their feedback. Yeah. So, and as a marketing department, we know that through every single stage of marketing, from planning to execution to reporting, sales are always involved.
Brilliant. Okay, so just advice for people perhaps in that bubble at the moment where they're really trying to educate the sales team on how marketing can help. Maybe go back to the end the result first, which obviously salespeople are looking for, and then draw them back to explain how to kind of get there and
100%.
Them, yeah?
Don't start by going to sales saying, as a marketing department, this is what we want to do. Instead, say to sales, what are you looking to achieve this quarter? What products are selling particularly well? What do you want to push? Infrastructure, services? What's your strategy for this quarter, for this year? And then do a little bit of a discovery phase first. It's so, so important, because then when you go away and you put together like a marketing plan and then you present it to sales, you can then sell sales that vision, which is what they're always focused on. They're always focused on that number and the outcome-led stuff. So then present them with what the outcome actually is, and if it's aligned with their strategy, then they're going to be supportive of it, and they're going to be invested.
And when it comes to your strategy, when I think of really good marketeers at the moment, they're very disruptive, they're very opinionated, and they're just causing massive waves in the market. So, Gary Vee for the last kind of 12 months has been at the forefront of that. Mike Winnett's huge on LinkedIn at the moment. Grant Cardone's got a very different kind of approach when it comes to it. When you're in that kind of corporately led business, is it difficult to have that kind of personality or share a brash opinion, or how can you go about doing that without riling people up?
I think that what B2B marketers can probably relate to when I say this is that there is a lack of bravery and feeling like we have to be restricted in terms of what marketing we can actually do, and it's up to marketing to create that persona, and we have to kind of think everyone has their own personal brand, right? You're living and breathing your personal brand outside of work, and all of your actions and anything you post online is reflective of that brand. So we have to kind of take a step back and think, what brand and what personality is XMA? If XMA was an actual human being, what would this individual be like? And yes, like marketing, yes, we can be bullish and we can come up with all these ideas and say, well, actually, why don't we do things differently? But I think that's one of the great things about being in marketing is that we question why things are being done a certain way, and don't let previous programs shape future strategy. You should always be willing to take risks, and what's wrong with taking risks? If you try something different that the rest of the business might be a bit like, oh, that's a bit risky, but you know, if it works, then amazing. You know, we're all winners here. But if it doesn't work, then absolutely fine. We know not to do that again, and we can go on to do something bigger and better. Yes, we have loud voices, but I actually think in B2B organisations, the marketing voice isn't loud enough.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think you're doing a lot of great things, which a lot of businesses aren't, especially the podcast and a few other parts. How does that work with your vendors? Because I think vendors have got their own image of themselves, and they want the kind of partners and resellers to represent that image. But at the same time, you've obviously got your own brand and your own way about going about it. To just be careful how you manage that, or
it's a fine art. Vendors are instrumental to our business, so important, and you know, the marketing managers in our team, they know how important those relationships are and how closely we work with them, and we have to be very considerate of the fact that we want to drive outcomes on both sides, and vendors invest in us and they invest in our marketing campaigns, but there is an art to finding that balance where we have to make sure that the XMA message doesn't get lost in the vendor message. And you know, we can go to market with like a message around Microsoft Surface or, you know, Apple or, you know, HPE for infrastructure, but that we always have to make sure that at the forefront is why should XMA in particular deliver this product or this solution, because that's how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors. And we've really started to make some really good steps in that particular space, because the way that the marketing team was structured before is that we were all vendor aligned. You know, we had an infrastructure marketing manager, a client one, a print one, and then, you know, that's kind of it. So we were always looking after the vendors and, you know, the vendor branding, and we never really went to market with a message just about XMA. And it's not until we started to tap into the corporate market where, you know, potential customers would say to us, sorry, who are XMA? We thought that you were public sector.
Yeah.
Like, who
Just
are
that
you?
corporate side,
That's
yeah.
when we had this little light bulb moment. We were like, oh my God, the XMA brand just hasn't even come to life. Like, you know, if someone were to, you know, say to a sales guy or anyone at XMA, so, you know, who are you? What makes you guys really good at what you do? Like, what makes you stand out from competitors? Then, you know, certainly from a marketing perspective, that message has just been completely left behind. And what's really good is we've actually now started to heavily invest in resource that looks after elements of the XMA business that don't have anything to do with vendors at all. So, like I say, it's working out that very fine balance, because and you know, the better campaigns that we put together with our vendors, then, you know, we both end up winners.
And you've touched on that and kind of innovated and pushed on and being different from the market. I noticed you've obviously got the eCommerce side of your business as well, which from my view as a kind of consumer, the businesses that are driving the sales at the moment are businesses like Amazon, and they're obviously online sales. Is that something you've gone and proactively done and wanted to give that offering to your customers, or I just don't think there's enough resellers and partners out there doing it?
No.
So what was the decision behind doing that?
Our e-commerce platforms are incredible and incredibly sophisticated, and you know, the e-commerce team really are, you know, world class in terms of what they have created for our customers, and it really is that real additional value that we can give to our customers that makes us stand out from the rest. And you know, we want our sales guys, we have to drive a different type of behaviour from them, and we want our sales guys to be more focused on serving you know, promoting services and infrastructure and more project-based stuff, so that we can really be an extension of their IT department, not just manually processing orders all the time. And you know, one of the things that we realised is let's take that part away from them. If we expect sales to push infrastructure and services, etc., then, you know, we can't expect them to be you know, manually processing kit orders all the time. It's gonna take up most of their day. So it really was a decision to help enable our sales guys to focus on other areas, but also making it much easier for customers to do business with XMA. And it's been a really exciting venture for marketing to be part of with e-commerce.
Yeah, and actually the sales guys, obviously the value from it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really, really made a huge difference in terms of how we engage with our customers and how we present XMA as, not just a reseller, but really that value added reseller. That word is so important.
I was trying to think why more businesses aren't doing it. And the only kind of thing that was resonating with me in my head was that perhaps if the view of the other partners is if they can get their sales individual on the phone to speak about them wanting to buy, a printer, they'd be able to open up and look for other upsell opportunities. But I suppose they'll naturally come if they're seeing the value in XMA anyway. So it's not a kind of be all and end all, is it? And they can still have that call and might need to find a different kind of talking point if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's almost look at the larger opportunity here. If we can see from a marketing data perspective, this is where the science of it comes in. We can see that buyers are procuring devices, X amount of times a month or supplies or ink and toner, etc. We can actually then pass that intelligence over to sales for them to then call up the customer and say, I can see that you're buying, a huge amount of devices from us online. Can I please talk to you about device as a service? Is your infrastructure, set up to support those devices? Or I can see that you bought devices from us X amount of time ago. Let's have a conversation about refresh as well. And that upsell opportunity is also really, really important for us because it's also about providing customers with the easiest buying process possible. Supplies and toner, for example. No one wakes up in the morning and be like, I can't wait to buy some toner for my printer this morning. It's just a need that people have. So let's take away that manual process for the customer as well. Let's make it really easy for them to do business with XMA. Let's have a marketing automation system in place where we can say, well, we know what kind of printer that you've got, so therefore, here are the supplies and the ink and the toner that can fit with that printer. Oh, and by the way, we've dropped you an email. We can see that you bought supplies from us a couple of months ago. You're going to be running low. So I tell you what, we've already popped it back into your basket. So all you have to do is log on and press.
Yeah, it's a great customer experience, isn't it?
Yeah,
of course.
And that's the thing, like customer outcomes is always the absolute focus of everything that we do. How can we make doing business with XMA the most seamless experience possible?
Yeah, of course. And you've touched on something there that's very innovative, and I think more companies will do over the next couple of years. One kind of area of marketing that I just don't get, and you'll probably be able to explain the value in it to me, is events. So I'm often seeing these kind of partners or vendors with these podiums at these big tech events, Excel Center, whatever that may be. And it might be because I go to them as a kind of pesky recruiter that no vendor or reseller wants to speak to, and why you come to my store, I need to sell or something like that. But is there value still in events, or are people doing it because we've always done it?
It's kind of like I say before, like let's not let past programs drive future strategy.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Let's have a look back and let's have a look at the amount of investment that goes into events. And you kind of end up getting caught in this loop, right, where you say, well, a couple of years ago we invested this amount and we got 60 leads out of it. The following year we invested the same amount in it, but we got 40 leads. And then this year we've invested the same amount and we've got 30 leads. But at least we've got 30 leads. Without that exhibition, we wouldn't have got those 30 leads. But then you have to take a look back and you say, but we're still investing the same amount. Yeah. And yet actually we're starting to drive lower and lower return. And sales guys are always really, really keen to go to these events. It's a chance for them to engage with their customers, maybe, engage with a new audience. But, if we don't go to that event, is it really going to make the biggest amount of difference possible? Is that event the only place where we can engage with these new customers and with the existing customers as well? Whenever we talk about events and exhibitions, again, we start with the end in mind. We say, well, why specifically do we want to go to that event? What outcome are we actually looking to drive from it? And then we have to kind of present alternative options, because if we've always gone to these events, marketing should never go to sales and say it's a flat no. We're not going to that event. No, it's not going to work, because that gets sales back up, and then they're going to think, like I say, sales and marketing are a partnership, and they're going to think, well, you're not really supporting the business if you're just saying a flat no. We have to then present an alternative solution, and that's why we say, let's engage with our customers with hosting a round table event, for example. Let's actually get prospects or customers in the room and have a more intimate discussion with them, because then your conversion rate is going to be so much higher.
Yeah, of course.
But then there's a different strategy, for example, with corporate, because corporate is so heavily lead generation for us at the moment, and it is about brand exposure, and we need to do everything we can to support corporate with building that pipeline of opportunity. exhibitions probably is the way to go with corporate, because it's a chance for us to get our name out there in the corporate market and collect leads and have valuable conversations. But that comes into the risk factor where we've never done a corporate event this year, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't. We're still gonna do it, but if it doesn't work, then we come up with something else and we think of a new way to engage with new business.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And along with this kind of management piece you're doing at the moment comes recruitment.
Yeah.
Is it the first time you'd ever had involvement in kind of recruitment processes?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you found that?
You think it's going to be easy, but it's absolutely not. You get flooded with CVs. And I think one of the most difficult things I find is you're just presented with a piece of paper and you don't know anything about this individual, and you almost feel bad for just sort of judging this person based on years of experience on this piece of paper. And when I was hiring for a marketing manager with you, I remember I actually looked at a CV and said she doesn't have enough years of experience, therefore I'm casting it to one side. But then I ended up hiring her, didn't I?
Yes,
so
you did.
Biggest lesson that I've learned is, and it is a challenge, because you can't put how are you supposed to project your personality and your ambition onto this piece of paper. Is very, very challenging. And then people think, well, if I go too alternative by trying to put my personality on there, then my CV might get struck to one side because people think I'm not really taking this seriously.
Yeah, of course. I think that's the value of having a recruitment partner or someone you genuinely trust, because they can share that opinion. For me, recruitment is treated as this kind of commodity where just send me CVs, just get me the best CVs you've got, and you send them across. But if you're taking the time to genuinely interview and get to know these people, you need to represent them right, and rightly so. That candidate might not have stood the chance if I didn't kind of represent in that way. And there's a shameless plug there. We do sales and technical roles, we also do marketing. So if you've got any marketing roles, just give me a shout.
Shameless advertising.
Quite an interesting story that hire you just mentioned. So they went a bit above and beyond with you, and I'd be quite keen for you to share that story, because I think a lot of candidates rely on either the internal team to just put them in for an interview, or the recruitment company to do the legwork for them. Could you just go through the story that happened there and how it influenced your decision, if you like, in hiring them?
And what was most impressive is, this marketing is such a saturated market. You have to do so much to stand out. And the first stage interview that I had with this young lady, I felt very poorly. I had been off work sick for a good few days, and I never take days off sick, so it's bad when that happens. And I was coughing and spluttering on the phone, and yes, people listening might be like, "Oh, you probably shouldn't have done that phone interview," but I was actually feeling a little bit better. But you could still hear in my voice that I was still filled with disease. I apologised to her at the beginning of the call and said, "I'm so sorry, you'll have to forgive my voice. I don't normally sound like this. I've got a horrible cold." And after that phone interview, I went back to the office a couple of days later, and on my desk I found like a little package, and I opened it up, and it had a note with it that basically said, "Thank you so much for your time on the phone. Like, I'd just like to put forward my my expertise, etc., etc." And then she sort of said, "I believe that in a marketing role, it's about identifying, problems and then presenting a solution to those problems. When we work with sales and when we look at areas of development in the market, what problems do our customers have? And then it's up to marketing to then, market that solution to them." And she said, "So I think in this instance, your problem is you have a horrible cold, and my solution to you is a pack of triple strength Strepsils."
They work?
They did. I had a couple. So and within this pack was some Strepsils, and it was just outside the box thinking. And of course I invited her back for a third stage, and she was successful in her role. But that's what really made her stand out from the rest. And you could tell that she's gone out of her way to think about ways in which she can put herself in front of me as the hiring manager. And that's what marketing needs to do all the time. We always need to think about different and innovative ways to get in front of our customers over our competitors. And that's exactly what she did.
Yeah, so same. I wasn't even aware of that until you actually told me.
Yeah.
And it's like about being bold, isn't it? And being brave, your decision making, and going and trying something. And I'm sure she won't mind me saying this. If you look kind of purely experienced, she may not have been the strongest candidate, but the personality fit to XMA, her desire and passion, and obviously going outside the usual box is a credit to her, and fair play to her. Was a brilliant idea that I did initiate, which I think a lot of people might have that stigma. Yeah, I didn't know anything. I don't think I'd be able to think of that. I'm not creative enough, but. Okay, and when you go about kind of hiring for such on their kind of personality and drives really important, is there anything in particular you look when you're interviewing, any advice you can give to someone interviewing at the moment?
Like I say, it's very easy on paper to just be focused on years of experience, and looking at my story, I didn't have the most years of experience for a head of department position or the marketing management position, but I am where I am now, not only because I proved myself, but because also XMA gave me that opportunity to prove myself, and because they know that I had the attitude and the drive to deliver, and that's absolutely what I focus on in recruitment as well. I want to give people that opportunity. You can have been in marketing for 10 years and had 10 years worth of experience, but if over those 10 years you've always done the same thing, then are you actually, have you actually got, a huge amount of experience and knowledge to be able to pass on to a new business, as opposed to someone who might have been doing marketing for 2 years, marketed to all of these different channels, helped develop strategy and thought outside the box and delivered XYZ. So actually, they almost have more sort of, tangible experience in terms of practical stuff they're doing on a day-to-day basis than someone with maybe 10 years of experience. So experience really isn't everything, and the thing that I care about most is attitude. So when I'm hiring for the marketing role, I want to see that someone that they really do want the role, because all marketing roles at XMA are incredible opportunities, and I feel very, very passionately about them because I know the doors that they can open for you. If you obviously do the job well, it's such good career progression, and I also want someone who's going to come in and think outside the box and think differently. I don't know everything, and neither does everyone else in the team. That's why it's important to bring people in with completely fresh ideas. And you know what? They don't always have to have experience in IT or technology at this stage in their career for the marketing execs or marketing managers that we're hiring for. But so long as they show that, they're hungry to learn, and that, they can actually just bring something ever so slightly different to the table, because they're coming into the market with kind of a completely new mindset, and, they might think of different ways for us to interact with our customers, because I think sometimes we get lost in the day-to-day jargon and the same old stuff of marketing to customers, but someone that can come in with brand new fresh ideas is completely invaluable.
100%. Okay, and my two kind of final questions there, and you touched on it slightly. Once you knew you wanted that kind of promotion, you wanted to be head of marketing, and like you said, you necessarily didn't have the years experience that maybe the business was looking for when they initially looked. Did you go to Ian and say, I've seen that person's left, I want their job, or I want to be promoted? How did you present that to Ian for people that may be getting a bit stagnant in their roles and want that next step? What did you do to go and make that happen?
I take pride in my ability to identify opportunities, and I think that ambition and that motivation really helps me see that next step for me. And I knew that from being at the bottom of the pecking order, I suppose is fair to say, in marketing, to then working my way up on each stage, I had so much knowledge about the department and how it works that I felt really, really confident in myself. And I sort of thought, you know what, I could actually lead this department. I really had that self-belief. I knew that if they were to bring in someone external, then think about all the training that they have to go through. They had to understand the organisation more. So I knew that was something that really played to my strengths. I'm already very well established in the business. I know exactly how it runs, and I know every single area of the marketing department. What I did was, rather than go up and say, I want this job, I thought to myself, do you know what, I have a vision for the department, and having, spent a good few years with the department and, working my way up, I care so much about the marketing department and marketing at XMA. that I let that kind of passion drive me in that conversation. And what I did is that because I kind of thought, I know what's best for the department. Like I know areas of improvement. I know exactly what we could do to make it better. I, have all of these ideas. So what I did is that I wrote out a little bit of a strategy, and I sort of pinpointed what I would do if I was in that position, and presented it. And I don't think that no one should ever feel like they're owed anything. You have to earn every single thing that you do. Just because you turn up for work, 9 to 5 on time, and you've stuck with the company for a year, you're not necessarily entitled to any kind of promotion if you haven't earned it. You can't do the minimum amount and expect maximum investment from the business. You can't. And I think that you really have to go the extra mile. You can't just do a bit of a box ticking exercise in terms of what your job description tells you need to do, and then think that that's enough. Like, if you want to start progressing, and if you want to drive yourself forward in your career, you have to go above and beyond. And yes, sometimes that might mean, for some people, that might mean some late nights in the office. For some people, like it did for me, it meant expanding your own knowledge outside of work and making sure that you have enough skills to be able to suit you for a future role.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a big issue of our kind of generation, is that there's an expectation of entitlement, and there's still people out there going and chasing these roles. So I feel a bit frustrated with that stigma, and there's kind of success stories, like you said, of people like you going out and doing it. So yeah, that's really important. And I know we touched on it a little before we started the podcast, that kind of personal development piece. Forget the entitlement, learn from podcasts, learn from books, and there's so many different sources out there to go out and do 100%. This, isn't there?
And especially in marketing, you never stop learning. And especially in technology as well, in particular, and in IT, we're always marketing the modern workspace, but that term's going to be out of date next year in terms of what we consider to be the modern workspace. We have to not just always make sure that our skills are up to date in terms of how we engage with our customers, but we have to know what's the hot topic and what do our customers want to know about? How can we simplify all of the IT jargon, and how can we relay a message that's going to be really personal to those businesses and to those individuals? And another challenge that marketing is going to face is all the different platforms that constantly get introduced, because let's take a look at TikTok for some example. That wasn't around like a few years ago, but now everyone's using it, and it's that's now almost going to become a marketing channel for businesses in terms of B2C. And yes, there are so many different platforms around B2B, but look at how LinkedIn is used nowadays and how advanced Google AdWords has become. We need to be able to have the knowledge to use all those different platforms to be able to measure our successes. And if you don't feel like your organisation is going to equip you with those skills, then it's up to you to make sure that you have those skills, so that when you do go and move on to your next position and your next opportunity, that you're equipped with those. Yeah,
definitely. And I think one thing that's going to resonate with me from this chat is your kind of thought process, and you always look at the end result and kind of work backwards, which I don't think a lot of people do. And I think it's a kind of your short-term thinking of what can I do next, what can I do? But if you go right to the end and work backwards, the plan will create itself, won't it? So yeah. I think that's really important as a bit of a takeaway for everyone. My final question, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to a marketeer either in the early stage of their career or just joining to make a bit of a name for themselves in the industry like you have?
I think the first one is, don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no stupid questions, and especially in the early stages as well. You should forget about marketing for a second when you first start in a marketing role. Just get to know the business, because, like I say, marketing is an extension of the sales department. We serve every single area of the business, not just sales. We work closely with services, with the commercial team, all across the business. So that means that we need to understand areas of growth for that business. We need to understand what their vision is. Every department works differently and might, work to different outcomes. We have to know what that is. So I think my biggest bit of advice is to, first of all, just take a step back and don't just immediately go in and start thinking about different marketing ideas, because first you have to understand the business. And I think that's my biggest bit of advice, because then if you can demonstrate that you've gone across different stakeholders to the business and taken the time, because I think that's probably where the disconnect from between marketing and the rest of the business can happen, is that you have to demonstrate you've taken the time to really understand those department challenges and their visions, so then you can create the best possible marketing plan that can help support and meet those, and then that's where you make an impact.
Brilliant. Well, Helen, I really, really appreciate your time today, and there's a lot of advice there for people either coming into the industry or moving into that senior role. Is there anything in particular you're really excited about XMA at the moment that you want to share?
It's going to be a really exciting year for us, especially in marketing. Lots of new ideas. We've got a motto this year, which I think I've been saying all across this podcast is sporadically, is let's be brave, let's be creative, and let's take risks, and let's not let previous programs define future strategy. So It's a really exciting time to be in marketing at XMA this year.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing how it plays out. Well, yeah, really appreciate your time, and catch up with you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.